What are Canadians doing behind closed doors as we all shelter in place during this pandemic? The answer might surprise you. Studies show Canadians are drinking more, smoking more, and delving into vices like never before. To help us understand why, we're joined by addiction specialist and clinical counselor, Linda Gould. Thanks for joining us, Linda.
Oh, it's my pleasure to be here with you, Maggie.
So this is an interesting topic and development as we see as we're all in our homes a lot more. A recent survey conducted by Nanos for the Canadian Centre on Substance Use and Addiction reported 25% of Canadians aged 35 to 54 are drinking more at home during the pandemic, and cannabis consumption has increased slightly in our nation. Does this surprise you, Linda?
You know what? In a lot of ways, it doesn't surprise me. I think in these uncertain times, everyone's looking for ways to feel less stressful and more at peace. And I think alcohol, cannabis, even gambling, pornography, any way to feel that immediate sense of relief is on the rise. And I'm not surprised by that. And I think, people are looking for a way to just numb that stress and anxiety maybe that they're feeling. And I think that's leading towards an increase in the things that you were just talking about.
Yeah, it's interesting you say that because when many people were surveyed, some of the reasons for the increase in consumption were due to lack of regular schedule, boredom, stress, and loneliness in that order. It's interesting how many of us really rely on having a regular schedule and how just changing that can also change our habits.
Yeah. Isn't it amazing? We're such creatures of habit.
Yeah.
And we all love to have our routine and we really rely on it, even subconsciously. We don't really quite realize how impactful it is. And I think keeping that sense or establishing a sense of routine can really be helpful in this time where really there isn't a routine. And this is so new for all of us. No one really knows what to do every day. And we're adjusting to this new reality of what COVID-19 looks like. And I think you're right that sense of routine is really, really key for so many people. And without it, we're seeing that increase in addictive behaviors coming up and ways to kind of self-regulate that maybe are new for people, like increase in drinking or increase in cannabis use, like we said.
And you use the term addictive behaviors because I think, some people could say, well, I just drink a couple glasses of wine or, just a couple of cans of beer and I spread it out throughout the day. As an addiction specialist and a clinical counselor, speak into how that could lead to addiction. Maybe it was a little recreational and we're seeing that increase.
Yeah, and I think going back to that piece about not having a schedule and people would have a normal schedule of maybe drinking socially, or they would only drink on the weekends, or just have a more of a patterned approach to it. And so now without any kind of regular schedule, I think, people aren't really sure when is an appropriate time, as in their old schedules to begin to drink again or to drink socially. And so I think we are seeing that increase because that schedule that we're not having in our lives is leading towards just making more opportunity to drink. So we're at home all the time. There's more usage, or there's more, you can easily reach for it, right? And it's no longer a social event, it's more kind of on your own. And so that social drinking in isolation can really increase and develop those addictive patterns and behaviors that maybe we didn't even know we had.
Another interesting stat that I found was a certain porn site has indicated that they have seen traffic go up about 10% in Canada alone. And what I thought was interesting, Linda, is that they see a heightened tick in traffic at around 3 a.m., which I found interesting. Even they're finding it interesting because usually they would see traffic at other areas of time. Again, how do we make sure that these things don't go out of swing, that during this pandemic that we're able to keep these things regulated? I mean, it's kind of scary when you hear these numbers.
It is. Absolutely. And I'm not surprised to hear that because so many people are reporting that they're not able to sleep. And I think this increase in stress and anxiety is causing people to wake up in the night, and people who have never had that issue are waking up because they're worried. They're thinking about really what's happening in the world. And I think that sense of worry is waking people up. And I think they're looking to their phones or just some way to kind of regulate themselves when they would normally be sleeping. And so to answer your question, I think, I think it's good to be mindful of what are the things maybe that are coming up for us so we can identify, hey, what's causing some stress, or how am I supposed to be feeling? I think so if there's any kind of constant fear or worry, if you're kind of feeling agitated, or we just talked about sleeping difficulties, or maybe having trouble concentrating, or struggling making decisions, I think those are all little markers for us to say, hey, wait a minute, I think my brain is just overextending itself, and I'm really experiencing symptoms of worry and anxiety.
That's a really good point. I think distraction, we find ways to distract ourselves, especially when we face anxious situations or where anxiety heightens. What are some other healthy coping mechanisms or strategies that we can look towards? And maybe I think about, we're closer with our families now as we're all sheltered in with our families. Maybe even just those watching from the outside can just pay attention to if a loved one, spouse, friends that you might be sheltered with are showing some addiction signs.
Absolutely. And I think, May is Mental Health Awareness Month. And so maybe even taking an extra step and calling a few people and connecting and making sure, hey, how are you doing? And checking in. I think if someone's watching and they're wondering, hey, how do I self-regulate myself in a way that's healthy? I think there's a couple of things that we can do. And so keeping active, staying busy, taking some extra walks. The weather's turning so beautifully now. And so I think just making sure that we can get to a point where we're being physically active, staying connected. I think the flip side of social isolation is social connection. And I think social connection is going to be the biggest piece for people to gravitate towards a healthier lifestyle rather than needing these distractions in the night, or approaching pornography or increased alcoholism. I think we need to really stay socially connected. I think finding balance, having a good media diet is super helpful, especially with sleep. So maybe just monitoring and limiting how much we're watching, especially when it comes to COVID-19 news. Being kind to yourself is probably a really big piece too. So just remembering that we're all doing our best to manage the situation and to be kind to ourselves and to say, hey, I need to be gentle in my thought process, how I think about myself, how do I treat myself internally, and even how I treat others. Taking care of our physical bodies, we're holistic people. And so just really spending time doing that, and then reaching out for help. And this is a big piece for people. If you're finding that, hey, this is something that I haven't struggled with before, I haven't needed to drink this much, or I haven't needed to smoke this much, or I haven't needed to do online gambling, or now's the time to reach out and not to wait. And so many people are doing online counseling. There's amazing websites to go to get some support. And I think it's important to remember that people are not alone in this. This is happening across Canada. This is something that's on the rise, as you said. And so to remember that there's help and people can reach out for that.
Well said. Thank you so much, Linda, for your time today.
Oh, you're welcome, Maggie. Thanks.